Hey, wanna see my mixtape? Jesus, I swear AI gets scarier each day. Ugh, it's so uncanny, what the hell. Now, I feel very hateful today. I shall channel my inner hate-monger for this video. No, I will not scream, but spiritually, hate-monger is with me. And we're gonna notice. Today, we will notice. Anyway, there's like a random game that just released. It's like the best game ever, and it changed my life or something. And instead of playing that astroturf garbage, I instead decided to make this little video on 1. How this game came into being, and 2. Who is behind this game, the studio and the publisher, and maybe even further up, just some information that you might find interesting. First though, I have to deeply apologize to all the walking simulators I made fun of in the past. I am so sorry to Gone to the Rapture, Dear Esther, Gone Home, Firewatch, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I wasn't aware we would get games with even less gameplay, literally just movies. I am so sorry I have ever made fun of you. Well, anyway, why does Mixtape even exist? But I guess some aging millennial that lost all of their friends and no longer talks to their parents due to a big fight they had over COVID wants to pretend to remember the good old times of the 90s, even though none of them ever was a 90s kid, and the 90s weren't like that, and they aren't even Americans to begin with. That's kind of what I'm imagining, at least. So all of this is just sheer LARPing through impressions from what seems to be primarily movies and or other idealistic media of the time. Put that token lesbian character in there though, those existed back then in many large numbers, and also make everyone uncanny and ugly, while also having the game run at 12 frames for this cinematic effect because it's high art. And that is why I bought a 240Hz monitor, by the way, to have some art student wax poetically to me through his game. Or should I rather say a former musician? Guess that was obvious. And maybe some government funds too? Interesting. It's getting interesting. This is totally an indie game, guys. Totally an indie game. Don't worry about it. We're not gonna uncover something weird about this game. This game is quite literally what IGN labeled it as. It is at most a comfort movie you return to, as in nobody actually plays this game. They all just watch a playthrough, since it's not an actual game. And you save the money if you just watch a playthrough because you don't have to buy the game in the first place. It is prime Oscar bait. What a coincidence this movie pretends to be a game, while also getting all the awards. I wonder if movies are somehow related to all of this. The game was also made to tick all of the correct social and political boxes for maximum brownie points, and maybe even a spot at the Game Awards. Or maybe multiple spots at the Game Awards. Remember Stray? Remember Stray? We remember Stray. Nothing we haven't seen a million times already, by the way. Like with the movies. It's a pretentious simulation of nostalgia, a bait in order to get the Oscars nomination. I mean, the Game Awards nomination. Hey. And naturally, it's totally not suspicious that literally every journalist outlet praised the game. That is a natural occurrence. Do not look too closely now. All independently decided to make this game the best thing ever since sliced bread, even though it is the farthest away from being an actual video game, even when compared to other non-games. My fucking phone has more games with gameplay than this shit. Also, if you were asking, no, I will not show footage of this game on screen. And I think we have all watched it already. We have seen all this movie has to offer, and I think you might want to see something more pleasant in the background. You might want to see a real game running in the background. By the way, let's just look at the studio name first of all. It's everything you need to know. Pretensy, artsy, fartsy studio name. Beethoven and Dinosaur. Chungus original studio name you got there. Wholesome. So this turd is astroturfed as fuck, right? We can agree on that. This is like astroturfed as hell. Firstly, all of the shining reviews. Then again, it's just Oscar bait, so of course it's getting all the bells and whistles. And nobody actually bought this crap. It's an industry plan too, and naturally, it's funded by the Australian taxpayers. Because why wouldn't it be? Look at this. Business Victoria. Business Victoria delivers programs and services to support Victorian businesses to start, run and transform their business. Digital games businesses such as Beethoven and Dinosaur benefit from these state government incentives and initiatives, such as, for example, in addition, the Victorian Screen Rebate, a key incentive for digital games businesses based in Victoria. The Victorian Screen Incentive, managed by Vic Screen, offers grants, generally up to 10% of qualifying Victorian expenditure QVE for screen projects including film, television, post-production and digital games. It supports Footloose Productions and can be combined with federal offsets, with higher 50% grants available for 100% Victorian-owned companies in certain sectors. Oh, and what do we have here? Look at this! What is being released this summer? Mixtape by Beethoven and Dinosaur. I'm quoting, Beethoven and Dinosaur's Mixtape follows 3 friends on their last night of high school. It's set to an iconic soundtrack featuring the Smashing Pumpkins, Joy Division and more. By the way, who was that funded? Players joystick their way through a whimsical, what am I reading? Coming-of-age adventure which was featured at Tribeca and set for a summer release with support from Vic Screen. Vic Screen's production fund and talent placement have been integral to us. Not only have they helped us create and develop Mixtape itself, but grow and mature as a studio and team. Not government funded, guys. Not government funded though. Nothing to see here. Move along now. Quietly, please. Just a small, self-funded, hack and wholesome indie studio. Literally just a tiny itty bit small studio that got its hands on a ton of licensed music and produces a movie slop game made by wannabe filmmakers who will forever seethe that they could not make it in the movie industry. More on that later. The founder of the studio is Jonathan Mole, or Johnny Galvatron. Galvatron actually had a band named The Galvatrons. It is a niche band that produced a few albums, and he himself has also produced a few edited works as Johnny Galvatron himself, mostly for his games. And if you search him up, he is and was heavily featured in older articles on the same usual suspect game journalist websites. Why? Well, his studio released another game before Mixtape called The Artful Escape. There's a kind of interesting story behind that game too. Article number 1. Why one dev gave up the rockstar life for a Kickstarter project. An article from 2016. The Kickstarter campaign was originally seeking just over $35,000 at this point. What happened to that, you think? Well, next article. Making the Guns N' Roses of video games, pretentious title. Johnny Galvatron tells how Beethoven and Dinosaur's debut went from a failed Kickstarter to a critically acclaimed smash hit. Wait, what? Failed Kickstarter? Let's keep on going. E3 2017. The Artful Escape from unfounded Kickstarter to Xbox One exclusive. Originally named The Artful Escape of Francis Vendetti. Pretentious title. The game's Kickstarter Foundation failed to reach its goal of $50,000. The game was then picked up by publisher Annapurna Interactive prior to its grand E3 re-reveal. Re-reveal? This will be Beethoven's and Dinosaur's debut title. Wait, how? After a failed Kickstarter campaign, they got funding from Annapurna, get picked up, shown at E3, and get an Xbox release. Well, Beethoven and Dinosaurs initially funded the project with a $70,000 grant from Epic Games in 2015, so that's the first grant they have been given. Then the Kickstarter campaign launched in 2016 for an additional $35,000 and failed to raise sufficient funds, so a good $50,000 did not realize the project. Whether that money got refunded or just vanished, no idea. The failed Kickstarter gets the attention of a company called I Am 8-Bit, that is an American merchandise company, a video game publisher, and an artists collective based in Los Angeles, California. They also host an online store that primarily sells collectible vinyl records of video game soundtracks, so a bit of a hipster thing. I Am 8-Bit also published quite a few games you might have heard of, so it's not an unknown company. And I Am 8-Bit introduced Galvatron, the founder, to Annapurna Interactive. And Annapurna Interactive executives flew to Melbourne to play a demo of the Artful Escape during PAX East. And then and there, Annapurna Interactive offered a publishing deal almost immediately. And that is how the founder of Beethoven and Dinosaur ended up on all the games media websites back in the day, because he was a story of success. Which indeed, if true, if all the events line up, it's quite a story. The Artful Escape was initially funded through a combination of an Epic Games grant, a Kickstarter campaign that failed, and finally full funding from the publisher Annapurna Interactive. I don't know if their first game plays and feels like Mixtape. It is also primarily music and art related. In any case, Beethoven and Dinosaur got quite lucky, or maybe had good relations, to get their foot in the door of a publisher like Annapurna Interactive. But, you know, sometimes luck just lines up exactly how you want it. Oh, and let's not forget, Beethoven and Dinosaurs was previously also a recipient of a small business grant from the city of Melbourne in 2017, early in development of the Artful Escape as well. So great, more government funding. What a lucky small indie studio. So the founder and some other studio members clearly are very artistically inclined. There is just one thing. You have to make an actual game. The studio might just not have the right idea on how to make an actual game, and maybe you should stick to movies and music primarily, because that is what they seem to be good at. As it seems though, this is what they wanted to express through their art. But that music career primarily didn't turn into something too great, so I guess might as well try video games. Just, you know, gameplay is kind of an integral part of a video game, so yeah, art is important too, but a video game can't just be an art project, and that's it. Well, there's nothing really else to find out about the studio members besides a few guys that have their tweets protected. I wonder why. So we got a struggling artist making his musical dreams come true through a video game. Great. Maybe a bit of very lucky coincidences, a string of very lucky coincidences, and government funds and grants, but you know, nothing too suspicious. Definitely a small indie studio. I just don't like the final version of what they think a video game is. But what about that movie aspect that I was talking about? And what about the publisher? Well, Annapurna is a really interesting player, because one look behind the curtain explains so much why a failed Kickstarter game got picked up, astroturfed, and then also at the same time the same studio gets their second game glazed to the highest heavens. Let's talk about Megan Ellison, founder of Annapurna Interactive. Margaret Megan Elizabeth Ellison is an American film producer. Ellison was included in the annual Times 100 list of one of the most influential people in the world. She is the daughter of the Oracle Corporation co-founder and chairman, multi-billionaire Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison is a he's an Italian. Anyway, moving on. On September 10, 2025, Ellison was briefly the wealthiest person in the world, her father. Interesting. In 2017, Larry Ellison donated 16.6 million, equivalent to 21 million in 2025, dollars to the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces. I don't know why I'm reading all of this. In 2019, Ellison helped fund an archaeological excavation that was criticized by the Israel peace activists. A lawsuit was filed against several supporters, including Ellison, accusing them of conspiring ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people from Israeli-occupied territories, committing war crimes, and funding genocide. The case was dismissed in February of 2024. Strange. Ellison lobbied Israel mogul Amnon Mikdan to drop his lawyer so that Benjamin Netanyahu could hire the lawyer for one of his corruption cases in 2021. Ellison offered Netanyahu a board seat at Oracle, and the same year Netanyahu and his family vacationed on the island that Ellison owns in Hawaii. Interesting. Very interesting. Nothing to see here though. Let's move back to Megan Ellison. She has a brother, film producer David Ellison, who founded Skydance Media, who has merged with Paramount, for example. Megan Ellison and her brother David Ellison are two of the most influential figures in modern Hollywood. And she funded Annapurna Pictures first, the actual movie production company, where she produced most of her films. And in December 2016, Annapurna Interactive was founded, a subsidiary making video games. Totally an indie company, by the way. Also, the Wikipedia entries look very, very clean. Almost a bit too clean. Oh, what's this? Annapurna stumbles? Billionaire Larry Ellison exerts control? Let's read that one. Oracle founder Larry Ellison is engineering a major reorganization of his daughters Megan Ellison's struggling Annapurna Pictures. The reason their production company remained stable until this point was due to continued benefit from the deep pockets of Megan's billionaire father. I see what's going on. Both she and her brother, David, had the advantage of readily available funds when they each launched their companies. A Nepo baby, anyone? Do I smell Nepo baby? Annapurna has racked up hundreds of millions of dollars of losses over the years due to some significant box office misses. Quote unquote, these are good artsy movies that lose a ton of money. End quote, says one person familiar with the company's financials. Weird, there seems to be some sort of parallel here. Can't really point it out though. Annapurna's move into distributing its own films with 2017's Detroit has been a financial disaster. It has cost the companies tens of millions in losses and has required infusions of cash from Larry Ellison? Larry Ellison has been an advisor since day one and has fully empowered Megan as the CEO of the company. His involvement has not changed since she founded Annapurna, aka he still has the same level of control and influence. And he's giving her money. Megan Ellison had become frustrated at a lack of control over the rollout of Annapurna Productions and moved aggressively into the distribution space despite warnings from industry figures who cited the significant financial risk involved. So it's her fault. In 2021, Megan Ellison returned to her diminished brand. Annapurna's film unit has been significantly hobbled and hasn't released a film since August 2019. Annapurna managed to resolve debt and avoid Chapter 11 bankruptcy, likely through Daddy's intervention. Besides people online going totally mental over her possible Israeli connections and her father, which is pretty obvious, it also looks like she wanted to be a film producer and distributor and has kind of fumbled that step with her company. Interesting. Is someone trying to live her film producer career vicariously through movie games because she can't get her shit together with her actual company unless Daddy helps her out? Is that the case? And if you don't think she is a controversial person yet, how about this one? Annapurna Interactive's entire staff resigned en masse after dispute with Megan Ellison. The dispute revolved around negotiations to spin off the video game division into a separate company. When the two sides didn't reach an agreement, Ellison pulled out of the talks, which led to the studio's employees all leaving. The gaming's division dispute was with its parent company, Annapurna Pictures, and its billionaire owner, Megan Ellison. Interactive's division's future under Annapurna Pictures was concerning. Ellison initiated a leadership shakeup with conflicting accounts as to what precisely happened in the Interactive division, and at this point talks began between Nathan Gary, the original founder of Annapurna's gaming-focused Interactive division, and Megan Ellison to spin Annapurna Interactive off into a more independent but still financially tight publisher called Verist, and Ellison refused to continue working with them on an agreement to spin off the division into a separate entity, and the parent company owner Megan Ellison withdrew entirely from the deal without any form of feedback, and thus all 25 members of the Annapurna Interactive team collectively resigned. By the way, Annapurna Interactive is anything but an indie company. I know I can drop the act by now, it's evident by the fact that, it's funded by Megan and her dad, and Annapurna Interactive is literally just a subdivision of Annapurna Pictures. So how indie are the studios that Annapurna Interactive has under their wing then? Ignoring all of the government funds, by the way. And also, if all of Annapurna's original creators left from the gaming division, what happened to that company? Like, what has it turned into? Who's sitting there nowadays? Are they just hiring new studios to make movie game slop? Also, do you want to see more evidence that our Megan here really wants to get back into movies again? Look at this. Megan Ellison revs up movie ambitions again. Annapurna is gearing up for an industry re-emergence. So she's rebuilding her movie ambitions again, hiring talent, hiring new people. Looks like someone that would love to hire a studio to make a beautiful movie game for them. It all kind of starts making sense. No, I don't know if you should financially support a figure like Megan, considering who her father is and who his connections are, but to each their own, I would say. So, movie person that really wants to be a movie producer but is likely just a nepo baby, and she's revving up movie production again, likely with her father's money, and she also happens to throw out a movie game at the same time. It really is like that one insider said about the company. These are good artsy movies and games that just lose a ton of money because nobody actually buys or plays them. And you know, Mixtape is not a game. And there you have it, Mixtape, a nepo baby passion project of a studio backed by government grants and funds and published by literal Larry Ellison Oracle founder money. A publisher headed by a nepo baby that almost ran her production company into the ground until daddy stepped in. Great game. Anyway, you wanna see my mixtape?